This video is on question 22 of the 2012 TSA, and here we're asked which option most closely parallels the reasoning that's used in the argument. So this is the passage that we're given. And we're first told that there was a time when the government had to support the currency or raise interest rates. It had to make this decision. But it couldn't raise interest rates. That would have been political suicide. And therefore, the government had to support the currency, support the pound. So what's the logical form of each sentence? Well, in the first sentence, the author is putting forward two alternatives. So the logical form is going to be A or B. In the second sentence, the author is ruling out one of the alternatives, i.e. not B is the logical form. And in the third sentence, the author is saying, therefore, we have to choose the other alternative. In other words, the logical form is therefore A. So the logical form used here, or rather the reasoning that's used in this passage, is A or B, not B, therefore A. And note that we could have said A or B, not A, therefore B, or B and A, not B, therefore A. It doesn't really matter. The point is, the author is putting forward two alternatives, ruling out one of them, and saying, therefore, we should choose the other one. Or therefore, we have to choose the other one. So that's the reasoning. Now we're going to have a look at some options to see if there's one which closely parallels this reasoning. So here we have our 5 options, and here we have the reasoning that's used in the passage. So let's go through each option. A says, if he'd followed the doctor's advice, he would have recovered by now. But he couldn't take time off, i.e. he didn't follow the doctor's advice, and so he's still unwell, i.e. he hasn't yet recovered. So the logical form of this option seems to be, if A, then B, followed advice, would have recovered. Not A, not followed the advice, therefore not B, not recovered. And if we compare this to the reasoning used in the passage, we see that it doesn't match. What about B? This says you either have an allergy or a virus. If it's a virus, you can't do anything about it, so assume it's an allergy. Well, the logical form of this looks like this. A or B, allergy or virus. If B, then C. If virus, can't do anything about it. Therefore D, therefore assume it's an allergy. And we can see, just by glancing at the reasoning used in the passage, that this is different. What about C? This says we had either paracetamol or aspirin. But given that she was allergic to aspirin, she had to take the paracetamol. So the logical form of this looks like this. A or B, paracetamol or aspirin, not B, not aspirin, therefore A, paracetamol. And if we look at the reasoning used in the passage, we can see that they're identical. And so C looks like it's going to be the answer. But let's check D and D. D says that the treatment is available on prescription or over the counter. It's cheaper on prescription, so I need to see my GP. Now, the logical form of this looks something like this. A or B, prescription or over the counter. C is cheaper on prescription. Therefore A, therefore prescription, because they want to see their GP to get a prescription. And we can see, just by looking at this third term here, that this is not going to parallel the reasoning used. Because if we look at the reasoning used in the argument, we can see that there's only 2 variables, A and B. So D is not going to be right. What about E? This says there are 2 doctors. The female is pleasant, the man sometimes isn't pleasant, and so I hope I see the woman. So what's the logical form of this? Well, it looks something like this. A or B, man or woman, not B, not man, therefore woman, A. And if we look at the reasoning used in the passage, we can see that this too is identical. However, as we'll now find out, E isn't right. C is the answer. Why is C rather than E the answer? Well, if we look back at the passage and we examine the details of what the author is saying, we'll see that the author is saying that the government couldn't do B, and that therefore they had to do A. In other words, a key word, or words, are had to. And if we look at option C, we see that this option has these key words. She had to take the paracetamol. If we look at option E, however, we see that these key words are lacking. There's no talk of having to do something, only hoping to do something. And so it's option C that seems to most closely parallel the kind of reasoning used in the passage. And so the answer is C.